Hello and welcome, where we paint away the stress of everyday life here in Wales. And as you may tell, I've got a bit of a croaky voice. I got laryngitis, so I can't really talk too much. But I'd like to ask you, if it's the first time you've watched one of my videos, to click the subscribe button, give me a like and a thumbs up, and please leave me a comment, which I will respond to immediately when I can. Okay, so what I've done today, I can't really talk my way through a lesson because of my voice. So I've done a compilation of trees, a compilation of tree paintings. So there's 5 different ways of that I paint a tree. So please enjoy this lesson, and I'm going to go before I cough. And don't forget to click the subscribe button, and I'll see you at the end of the video. Bye.
So grab your brush, have a great time, and don't forget to click subscribe.
The brush against the canvas like that. I'm putting some darker colours in place. I'm picking up a bit of orange. Just dab in, dab in, dab in, dab in, dab in, dab in. Picking up a bit of that white we made earlier for the background, and I'm just going to add that in. This is like a little wet on wet technique. This is not dry yet, so I'm just trying to make some patterns like that. Picking up a bit more red now, and I'm just going to go in between. I'm not going to kill anything off. Using my brush, getting a bit more red, I'm putting my brush to like a chisel. I'm getting that as sharp as I can, pushing in, getting a bit of paint. And I'm just going to make some shapes. That's all I'm doing. Bit of orange now. Bit more red. I'm going straight into neat red now, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just push up like that. Wiping my brush, taking the paint off the brush. I'm not going to wet it, I'm just taking the paint off the brush, and I'm just going to drag that down like that. I'm going to pick up a bit of that creamy mix that we made earlier, and I'm just going to go on a motion, rocking motion like that. This is all about just getting to know the brush, getting to know the paint. And I am really am aware that I can make this look easy. But I'm going to go into a bit of yellow now. I'm going to incorporate a bit of yellow here. I'm straight into a little bit of red. I want to darken this one edge off. I haven't washed my brush. I don't know if you'll notice, but I haven't washed my brush yet. And now the paint is starting to get a little bit sticky. So I've got to be careful that when I say I'm going to lift paint, what it is because the paint is starting to dry, I can actually cause problems. So I'm going to put my brush in the water. I'm just going to get a nice blending brush. This is just a square. and I'm just going to go very lightly now. Short, flat. I'm going to mix a bit of titanium white. I'm going to make that a little bit of yellow. I'm going to touch of orange, I think. Let's try a touch of orange to it. That's better. You see what I do? I twist the brush. I just want to try. Yeah, that's okay. So let's go. Let's be bold. Let's be bold. Put the brush on, push it, and draw it down. Like that. Put a bit of flow retarder into that because it's dragging a little bit. Can you see how it's leaving a couple of little marks there? So we don't want them. So we'll just put that there like that. And we want to put another one there, but this time we'll go upwards and we'll hardly touch the canvas. So let's put a line like that. And this time we'll come there and go to there like that. On this one I want to go, I'm going to hold the brush like that. Can you see on that side? No, you can't. I'm going to hold the brush like that, and I'm just going to push, and I'm going to let it paint to come off the brush. You can see how I mean it's dragging, so you just go back over that. When you're doing this, you're going to make sure the brush is loaded really well. Into a shade now. I'm just pushing, tapping down. I'm just going to mix a little bit more black. I just want to darken that up again. Maybe you've gone a little bit dark there, Clive. But let's have a look what that looks like. I'll do for now. Okay, so let's go at it again with the hairdryer. Okay, so let's diddle diddle, lumpty dumpty dum. Just get your brush, make sure it's reasonably dry, and then just get a bit of black on it. You don't overload the brush. Make sure it is not overloaded. Get that bit off there, Clive. Now, what I want you to do is, don't worry about the back one at the moment. Just get your brush and then just lightly drag it like that. Very, very, very lightly, hardly touching the tree. Just let the paint come off the brush like that. Oops. Don't worry about that, we'll sort that out in a minute. And then the very tip there, just a little couple of marks here and there and here. These are what they got, like a silver birch tree, so they got black spots on them. Oops, too much. We'll put a bit of white paint on that in a minute. You can overdo this, don't overdo this, don't overdo this. You can spoil it very quickly, very quickly. It's an illusion of a tree. It's what we're trying to get effect of. Distant trees. Yeah. Go back into a bit of red now, and let's just neat red. Let's just put a little bit of colour in. Let's drag a couple of lines across. Don't worry too much about this. I just want to get a little bit of colour going in there. Just a bit of yellow coming in there now. Let's mix a bit of white with the yellow. I'll wash your brush. Mix a bit of white with the yellow. That's better. Get some yellow on the very tip of your brush, and let's just put a couple of dots here and there, not too many. You don't want to spoil this. And then a touch of white, just a touch. Let's have a little couple of spots here and there. You've got to be working quick, otherwise it'll dry on you and leave hollow marks, and that's not what you want. So we're going to put a little bit of a shadow being cast just lightly across the top, so those bits of corn. Now before we do anything further, I'm going to go back into my detail brush. I'm going to bring a bit of black, but I'm going to bring a bit of VANDYKE brown to it. A little bit of touch of DIOXAZINE purple. Maybe a little bit of burnt umber as well. Oop. Just chuck it in. And let's get these trees more defined. They're going to be lighter on the front than what they are on the back. It's going to be quite dark. And it's going to be lighter on the front. Now what we're going to do is, if we get a little bit of light, a little bit of white, a little touch, a little blue, and just down the back edge of this tree, like that, and down the front edge of this tree. The light is going to be hitting the front, but it's also going to have a little bit of light just coming off the very back, because it's lit from the side. So you're going to have a little tiny little glow there like that, but you don't want a lot, just enough to catch that eye. And then let's strengthen up a couple of branches. We'll put some more branches and things in later on. Well, let's just strengthen that up, and then we can come in, we can tighten that up later. Now this tree, this side of the tree, that's going to be dark in there, a little bit darker there, and then it's dark, really dark there. not so dark there. So I'm just lifting the brush off, allowing some of that whiter paint to come through. Just shows a little bit of difference there. And again, down here. And again down here. Strengthening up those trees. It's looking good. Now what we could do now is get this brush again and let's have a look. That road looks a little bit lighter there, so let's get this colour. Let's mix a wash of that. Let's just bring a little bit of a wash across there like that. Let's just lighten that up a touch. I'm not too happy with that. Let's just blend that in. And let's just build this road up a touch here. That's going to come around more of an arc, so we need to get a bit of green in there, don't we? A bit of lighter green. Let's just get this to look as if it is going into the distance. I've got an idea that Jason is going to like in a minute. Let's just let that dry a second. It just looks as if it's going away there. Let's put a bit of this area can be in shadow, so I'm just darkening that one side off. Just changing between colours, just looking at where the shadows are, a couple of little texture marks here and there, and just there's a lot of detail that can be put into this painting. I'm just trying to get the shape of that road. There you go. Pretty good so far. Okay, let's get a bit of that green. Back into the rake brush, a little bit of this yellow, a little bit of that green. Let's play around a little bit a minute, because if I talk too much sometimes I make so many mistakes, and I'm just very lightly going in, just hardly touching the canvas, and I'm just pulling. Imagine this brush has got so many hairs there, and it's like having all hundreds, not well, I don't know, 30 little strip liner brushes together. You've got to keep constantly loading in just to get the type of detail we're looking for. porosity.
Hey, welcome, thanks for stopping by. It's time to learn with our friend Clive. So grab your brush, have a great time. And don't forget to click subscribe. Visit clive5art.co.uk.
And just, you've got a lot more time than I have. I'm trying to give this as much of attention as I possibly can, and I'm going to be way over what I estimated this lesson would be, but it doesn't matter because I want it to be as close to the brief as I can, and I want to show that depth of colour at the same time. So I'm just going to put my brush down there. Now, Jason, you said you wanted to paint humans. Now, I've been playing around with the idea for quite a long time, and I come up with I got little tracings like this. I don't know if you can see, but I draw the same thing over and over and over at different sizes, because sometimes I can just trace. It's easier, and I can actually pick the size of the person I want. So if I wanted him in the front of the painting, I could put him that size, but the further he goes away, the smaller he becomes. But just for you today, I'm gonna put that there as a reference, because I can't remember how I drew him, and I'm gonna get myself a little detail brush like this. Let me get a smaller detail brush. I'll do. I'm just gonna go black. Just gonna go black. Just gonna go in a little bit of black. Just go in a little bit of black, and I got to think of it, of his size now. Let's put his head there first. Let's put a little head, and you've got to think of a little carrot. Think of a little carrot. Yeah, a little carrot, a little arm like that. I'll do, and the other arm comes out. A bit like that. Does that look like it? No, that's okay. That looks in perspective, doesn't it? That'll be alright. Put a We'll put a bit of colour in him in a second. How's that look? Is he too small? Maybe he could be a bit bigger. Let's give him a red. Jacket like that. Let's give him some. Let's give him some brown trousers. Put a bit of white down on the tip of our brushes, just grab a little bit of light zinging down him. Let's get a brush and shadow. There you go. Looks like me taking my dog for a walk. Blend that in. Let's put a bit of brown on our dog. There you go. Do. How's that look? How's that look? Yes, I like. Okay, you got a lot more time than I have. You can play around with that a little bit. Let's get a little bit of a. I got some spots on my canvas, so let's turn them into birds. A bat. I don't like that one. I don't like that one either. There we are. Let's get rid of them. Let's try again. That's better. If first you don't succeed, a few more in. Yeah, it all flying around the corn. I'll tell you what we got to do. We got to get rid of that white mark there. Now, before we do anything else, let's go back onto our green. There's my scrubby brush, and let's add a little bit more white now to that green mix. And let's put the highlights. It's too light. Too much light. Darken it down. Gotta be very careful with these highlights, because if you get the colour wrong, that's better. And I do struggle. I keep saying I really do struggle with highlights. So this is a brighter light to green. Again, build the shapes, think of shapes as you do this. This is going to be quite bright there. And I'm just going to go into a little bit of lighter green now. I am going to sparkle this up a bit now. And I'm very lightly, selectively touching parts of this tree now, just for the final highlight. And I quite enjoyed this challenge. And I can carry on. I can work on this for hours and hours and hours, and I put that little man in there for you, Jason, because I was watching a video of you doing the sunset, and you said you wanted to do some figures and things, so I thought, oh, I'll put that in. That's you, that is, walking into the distance. There you go. He said he's a sloppy, he's a sloppy master. I'm quite a loose master. You've got to be loose when you paint with acrylics. But you got to be sloppy, not slack. That's right. You said when it's slack, you got to be slack. Got to be slack. Be painting with oils. You've got to be loose when you're doing this, not too loose. Picking up those highlights now on the trees. And don't forget, as I said, it dries much darker. You'd be surprised how this will dry. So don't overdo it. You can always add a little bit more. You cannot take anything away. And that's a fact. Right, before we do anything else, where's my script liner brush? I'm going to go into a little bit of this brown purpley type of colour. And let's put a few twigs here and there. Sometimes just allow the brush just to do what it wants, and something you'd be surprised the effects you can get. Yes. There you go. Let's take the edge down the back edge of that tree now, like that. And in there. Get my little shading brush. And I'm just going to pull it around like that. A few. We did say we were going to put a fence post, didn't we, down. So I would say, what's he, about 5 foot there, maybe? So a fence post would be about so high there. And then we'd have another one there. Now where I live, some of these types of posts in the fields are just bits of wood. They're not square or nothing, they're just like branches, you know, big thick branches there. And what we can do now is, tell you what we could do. Let's get, where's that? Well, I just chucked it back in the water. Let me try that off. And let's put a old rickety old fence. Like that. And that could actually go down. Into the distance. That'll be alright. Let's get a bit of black now. I want this to be in shadow, but I want the front edge of that post to look like as if it's just catching a bit of light. So most of this is going to be, I could put a chain link fence on this, but I'm not going to. Yeah, just to show you a couple of different ideas what you can do with acrylics. That's all it is in this exercise. I'm going to go back into a little bit of that black mix and shading brush. A shadow there, like that. Can wash our brush. What else can we do? I'm enjoying this, Jason. Let's get a bit of white and just go like that. Couple of jet streams. People going on holiday. There you go. To make it look a little bit more like that, and let's get a little bit of on your brush, just pick up a couple of light spots like that, and wow, I don't know, I think we just about got a finished painting. What do you think? I think we have. So I tell you what we can do, let's just finish off. Please like, comment and subscribe. That's what I like to say at this particular point. And I have enjoyed this. Let's put a little bit of shadow. Let's put in a bit of black. I have enjoyed this lesson, and you can paint. You can carry on with this for hours and hours and hours. And I haven't got hours and hours because I've spent hours and hours enough. But I think what I can do today now is get my script liner brush, get myself a little bit of black. And I'm going to just paint, sign my name with a bit of black. Is that white? Sign my name with a bit of black paint in this corner. Try not to kill what you've already done at the back because we worked hard there. Here you are. And I think that's just about what we call a finished painting. There you go. Just putting a bit of dark in. into my brush, picking up my short angle flat again. Oops, drop the brush, Clive. A little bit of moisture, and I'm just going to wasn't too happy with that edge. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to play around with that a minute. I want it to look as if I'm dragging down and pulling off like that. We can play around with this in a second. Okay, I need to put some sort of a, let's get a bit of that colour, mix a bit more of that colour, a bit of hooker's green, and we said a bit of black, wasn't it? That's right. Just a nice dark colour. Let's put a little bit of that phthalo blue into it, just to give it a nice dark colour. I want to put some sort of a tree in here. So let's just put a line in for now. I want to try and develop that shape that I'm looking for. It's like a pencil drawing, and what I'm doing is I'm just putting in some of the trunks, maybe a couple of branches coming out, and I'm just trying to establish possible shapes there. Just mixing a little bit of white into the corner. That's it, I'll do for now. Let that dry for a second. Going back into our brush that we done that bush with there, and as we done with the back trees, let's get a little bit of hooker's green, a little bit of that lemon yellow. And then this is going to be the lighter side, so just tap in a little bit of that colour. Leave little pockets of dark. We've already established a little bit by there. Let's get a bit more lemon yellow into that. Not as bright as I wanted it. That's better. I'm just pushing up like that. Leave little pockets of dark. It's like there's a big bush there, and there's all different foliage, and just leave that dry. There we go. Just looking at my camera. Okay. Now at this stage, I'm just cleaning a brush. Is that angled flat again? No, I think I'm going to go into a strip liner brush. I've got a strip liner brush. Where have I put my strip liner brush? There it is. Back into that black that we made for the trees. Now I want to put another one maybe here, like that. I'll put another one maybe like that. Yeah, that'll be alright. I don't want to kill that. I'm just trying to look what we can do here. Maybe a little baby one there, like that. There you go. I'll do. Okay, so we got some sort of a pattern establishing. So let's go back now. Let's put that safe. Let's pick up a nice small little filbert, or you can a short flat. That's fine, whatever. Let's go into this nice light lemon yellow and hooker's green mix, and just go into this edge now and let's just play around with this area. Tap in the brush, trying to find patterns. Bring in a bit of black. Where's our black? There it is, Clive. Bring in a bit of that black. Just tapping in. On a side, a little bit mixed up here and there. And this is your feature tree. A bit darker there. Up there like that. Just play. Let your brush. Don't think too much about. Let the tree develop. The tree is a natural occurring thing, isn't it? It's live. It grows. It'll grow anywhere it wants. It'll go towards the light, or a couple of birds might have come along and they might have broken a couple of branches off. The squirrels have been running up there. You know, there's animals have been rubbing up against the tree, and you don't know what's in this place. And they're walking up towards the lake. They're going to go for drinks. A couple of dark spots in there. Deep shadows in it. Keep a couple of. And bring the tree out a little bit like that. It had a funny old year. The wind was blowing this year, and it was, when it was growing, it was battered. We're hiding some of that lake. That doesn't matter. We know it's there. It's practice, about practice as well as this. Pulling up a little bit now. Let's just develop a couple of weeds and things and long grasses just under this tree here. Let's just put them in place now while we got it. That's the shadow of the tree. These are lessons. These are lessons in technique. These are showing you different ways of doing different things, and that's all I'm trying to do here, is just do a painting in such a way that you can learn from doing, and that's the most important thing, especially with art, is you've got to do it. You've got to experience the joy of making mistakes. Even even making mistakes. There's a lot to be learned from making mistakes, and even though I planned this a little bit, I don't know what these trees are going to look like. I don't know exactly how they're going to come and grow and develop. That's the joy. This is art. That's what makes it fun. That's what makes it fun. It certainly does. Let's just put a little bit of that colour just underneath these trees. It's just look as if there's a little bit of shadow in there, and just pull up a little bit. Put this in a bit light, we can always go over it with a wash. Just put a little bit of texture in now, like that. We'll be working on that a little bit more just before we can actually complete this painting. Just find a couple of little clumps. There we go. Now back into this highlight colour, and we're going to go onto this side of the tree now. This is the main tree, and we're just going to find a couple of light spots like that. And have fun when you're doing this, and just think a little bit of shape and form, because all trees are really bushes on sticks. So if you think of a bush like those, these are just little clumps of bushes. That's all they are. Nice and easy, nice and simple. Don't kill all the dark. That's your friend. Is the dark. That's what gives it depth and dimension and makes it look real. There's all the shadows and things. And there's a little bird hiding in this tree somewhere. He's made a nest. He's come along. And it could be a nice spring day, and she's sitting on the eggs. And the father bird is just flown off and going to get some food. That's what they do. Okay, so let's just put again, just drag up a little bit on the bottom here now. Like I say, little bits of grass and whatnots. What's a what-not-not? It's not what. If you're bad, it helps. Yes. And let's just pick up a bit of hooker's green and again mix a bit of that in with that. Explained, you can paint on many different surfaces, and in this particular instance I'm painting on a canvas panel, and not exactly painting at the moment, but what I'm going to be doing is sketching an outline of a tree. And in this case I'm using a pastel pencil, and I'm just doing this by eye. Now if you've got difficulty in actually drawing or anything like that, don't be afraid to trace an image using some tracing paper, an image from your computer. We must be aware of copyright issues obviously, but a tree is a tree is a tree, and if you're taking a photograph of the tree or you're just using it as reference, then it's not a problem. As you can see, I'm just establishing the actual trunks of the tree at the moment, and a few little branches here and there and everywhere, ready for the little birds to come and fly onto and sit there, and the squirrels are going to be chasing the birds off the branches quite shortly. I'm just putting a little bit of a grass area there in place, just to give myself a reference to actually build this tree upon. I'm zooming in slightly now to show you how the branches actually work. They're in Y's and V's. You'll see there's always a little Y and there's a little V. Now you can do this when we're using the strip line brush with thin paint, and the paint's got to be to the consistency of ink. Okay, so continuing to actually put the branches in place now, and as I said, these are just rough outlines. You can put as many or as few as you want to. Looking at the canopy is built up in circular sections. Now the reason I do this is because you can get the shape of the tree a lot easier, and think of a tree as a group of bushes. That's the easiest way I can explain how to actually put a canopy on a tree. You can do it this way, but there are other ways you can do it, but personally I like to use a circular method. You don't have to do this. When you get a little bit more experienced, then obviously you can do this just from your mind, but in the early stages, as a beginner, you need to put some sort of a reference down in place. Okay, so I'm just going to be picking up some burnt umber now onto my brush. It's an angled short flat. It doesn't have to be angled, it just happens to be the one I actually picked up out of the paint brush rack. And I'm continuing to, I've just started, I should say, not continuing, and to actually block out the tree trunk. Now blocking out is just putting a colour in place, so we've got something to work to. Just speeding the process up a bit now, and just to save some video time. And you notice I'm not doing all the branches, I'm just doing the main branches in place, because the canopy is going to be hiding a lot of this anyway, so we don't want to spend too much time actually on the branches themselves. We can put some details in at a later stage. So I'm going into my mixing stick now. That's just a piece of masonette or plywood that I've put together, and I've mixed cadmium yellow medium with Mars black to make a green, because there's blue in Mars black, and I've selected quite a dark tone, and this is going to be my block out tone. Again, I'm going to block out the canopy, and I'm using a round bristle brush in this particular instance. And I'm just putting in the darks, and as you see, as I'm actually following the circles that I put in place there. And as you become more experienced, you won't have to put these circles in place, of course. But as a beginner, I think it's easier if you've got some sort of a guide to follow. But it's worth bearing in mind if you do actually draw onto a canvas or any surface really, that you need to use a very light stroke. You don't want it to come through the painting unless you know you're going to actually be painting over it. And in this particular instance, I haven't painted any background or colour or on the base. I wanted to leave the actual canvas board white to show you the change of tones and values actually on the canopy that I'm going to be placing on in a minute. But I'm continuing to build up the dark. As you can see, it's already started to develop that tree look. Now you can see that I've left parts of those trunks showing through, as you would see on any normal tree really. If you look at a tree, you need to study the trees, study anything you're actually painting. Now I've added a little bit more yellow to that mix and I've brightened it up a bit, and this is the first highlight. So it's a lighter colour again. It's another value of green, but I'm not going to go all over the dark that I put in place. I want to try and save some of that. But as you can see, I'm just establishing some of the first highlight. Now you need to think exactly where the light is going to come from. Don't worry too much about it per se, but if your light source is coming from the right to the left, obviously it's going to be lighter onto the right hand side of the tree and darker to the left, and you need to keep some of those shadow colours in place. Don't kill everything, and be very, very light stipple effect over those trees, over the tree I should say. The effect you're trying to get is a very light, soft stipple effect off the brush. So don't press too hard, just a very light pressure is involved. And I've lightened the value again, so I've added a little bit more cadmium yellow medium to the mix, and as you can see, I've increased the brightness of that green. And my light source is coming from the right on this particular painting, so I'm highlighting. This is the second highlight, so I'm doing exactly the same thing again. I've got a smaller brush now because I wanted a little bit more detail. And again, this is just a short flat that I've distressed. And I mean by distressing, I mean I've actually pushed it against the canvas or pushed it against my mixing table, and I've splayed the edges. So when you're doing trees, I suggest you keep some brushes specifically for this effect. And again, it's a very light stippling effect. So just being mindful exactly where you think the light is going to fall, and just put those highlights in place. Try not to destroy the first block out, and try not to destroy the first highlights. So we need a mixture of all these different values onto the canopy of the tree. I've just decided to put a little bush in as well. So when you do bushes, it works in exactly the same way as a canopy. It's just a bush. So it's one of those circles on its own on the floor. And with grass, it's the same type of effect you can get. But instead of stippling, you just push up with a brush or pull down with a brush. And if you use the same technique with building up tones, so we're going from a block out to a first highlight to the second highlight, you'll get that effect of brass as well. Now I've brightened up the third highlight colour, now very bright. I've added a little bit more cadmium yellow, and I've added a touch of white, just to sparkle the colour. And you can see my colour stick to my right hand side, and I'm just going in where I think that light is actually going to catch the tree. So don't destroy everything you've done. You worked hard to get to this stage, as you can see on the bush. I'm just adding those bright highlights here and there, and not overdoing it at all. Now there's some light going to be coming through the gaps of the trees, so bear that in mind as well. So just very quickly now, just working on the grass in exactly the same way. You know, you've got your first highlights and your second highlights and your third highlights. And so you could build that grass up in exactly the same way as you've done with the tree. So I'm just giving myself a little bit of colour to go to there. So now I've added a bit of Vandyke brown, maybe a touch of black in this particular instance, just to darken the back side of the tree because it is in shadow. Now you need to think about shadows and highlights. There are other YouTube videos on YouTube that I produced to cover this subject, but I mean, as in this particular instance, we're looking at the tree, and if the light source is coming from the right hand side, then obviously the back of the tree, which is the left hand side, is going to be in shadow. So nice light strokes up and down, trying to get a bit of an effect going there with some bark obviously, and there's a branch, as you can see, is broken off. So this tree's had quite a hard life. Some children have come along and started swinging on it in the spring, and looks as if it's snapped off. So the back side of the branch again is a little bit more in shadow, and the actual branches going through the tree as well are going to be dark because they're covered by the canopy, and obvious that there's going to be shadows in place there. So I'm picking up a script liner brush, which is a very thin brush. I mixed a little bit of water with the burnt umber, and I've made a very inky type of mix, and I brought the point of the brush to a sharp point by spinning it onto the palette. And I'm putting some details of branches on, the very thin ones, and I'm also pulling it down some lines onto the trunk just to give it a little bit of detail. So the tree is just about ready now for somebody to come along with a picnic basket and to sit under the tree, to shade themselves from the sun and watch the little rabbits running around and going underneath the bush, and the birds and the squirrels playing around in the tree. So this is quite an easy example of how to paint a nice tree, oak tree or anything like that. Get some reference photographs, go for a walk and study the trees, and when you start to look at things like trees and bushes and grasses with eyes of an artist, you will see more than what you would do if you don't paint. Okay, as you can see, we've got some Prussian blue, we've got some cadmium medium yellow, and we've got some cadmium red. I got yellow ochre, some raw sienna, some burnt umber and some Vandyke brown. I'm going to add to the palette now a touch of Mars black, and I'm going to bring in just a little bit of titanium white, and these are going to be our value change spots. Let's just get rid of that thing. There we go. So I've got my medium mix formula already there, and that's it. So brushes. Okay, so the brushes I'm going to be looking at are very similar to what we've done all the way through so far. I'm still going to be using the fan brush, so if you can get hold of one of these, that would be good. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in, I'm going to bring in a little bit of first and second highlights onto these trees. I'll explain to you exactly what I mean. I'm going to bring in a little bit of grass underneath. So I'm just going to work on this particular section there, and right, we'll do that. Okay, just wetting the palette a little bit with some of the formula, getting a bit of kitchen roll, Now we need a mix of green, so there's two ways we can do this. We can either use a little bit of black and a touch of yellow, and that's going to give us a nice green, which is like a mid-tone green. It's quite a dark green, so that's what I'm looking for. Maybe a little bit lighter than that. There we go. Not using any white, and just mixing the yellow, because you know the Mars Black has got the blue in it. So just tapping the brush on the edge like that, picking up a little bit, and then again exactly the same as we did when we made these trees. We're just going to go in with the very edge of the brush, but not going all over the black. Sorry, not the black, the dark. Just picking up a little bit on the edges there. And again on this particular tree. And just flicking up a little bit. A bit of a clumpy bit there. So I'm pushing up with the brush. But I'm not killing all our black. Now, using just the corner of this mix, we'll add a little bit more yellow to that. Bring in a touch of blue, only a touch, because Prussian blue is quite strong. And it's a much lighter colour, as you can see the difference there. And now what the blue does, it just takes away that yellowness, so it's just a little touch of blue, but just to take away that yellowness. And then again, just on the edge now, here and there, very sporadically with this, very sparingly. Just put a couple of little bits here and there, and there and here, just to build that tree up on them, just to show it like as if it's highlights there. Bit more yellow on the edge of that one again. But it doesn't matter if this is a little bit yellow now. And what we're going to do is just on the back of that tree, just a couple of little tiny little drip bits and pieces like that. Because don't forget, all this is going to be in shadow here, and this is going to be a bit brighter here because the sun is actually going to be catching it. And you see how I left that dark spot there? Now that looks as if there's shadows there. It looks as if it's under the tree. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to get some Vandyke brown, some black, some Prussian blue, some yellow. Make a nice dark colour. And very similar to what we've done here, so I want to put another tree here. So I'm going to think about where I'm going to do this, because I don't want to kill that one, so I want to try and get this tree roughly there. It's going to be a bit taller, and again starting at the top, put a clumper there. Like that. It's darken underneath there now. You think we may have destroyed that tree there, but you can still see it through, so give your brush a little wash now, get rid of that dark colour, just wash it in some water, get the majority of that off, and then go back into this colour that we mixed, and then very lightly and go into the second highlight colour, and again very lightly on the one side, and then the brightest colour, and we can add a little bit more yellow to that now, and you can bring in a little bit of white just to brighten it a bit, and then we want to put that just on the one side. A little bit in the front there, and then push up there a little bit on this one side here as well. Because this colour is lighter than that colour, it looks as if it's in front of it. Now that's going to go into the darker colour, that's going to go into shade there now. So add a little bit of dark to that. And let's just get that a little bit darker there. Just pushing up. We can put a bush in or something there. A little bit of dark. We've only used one brush so far. Now, what we want to do now is establish this network there of branches. So again, let's mix up a bit of colour now. Let's get a bit more yellow. We'll put a brush and blue to that. You want to change things up a bit. We don't want all the same type of greens. Put a bit of white into that. And if your brush is getting thick, use your little cloth. Let's bring a little bit of brown into that just to change things up a bit, and then just tap in, tap in. We'll pick up a small short flat now for this. So let's just add a little bit of black to that. Let's just change that up a bit more yellow. Now you don't have to be dead on with these particular mixes. And then splay the edge. So all you want is basically a dark green, a mid green, and a very light green. And then we're just going to do this effect. Watch now. I'll do a little bit by ear because we can paint over it after. All I'm doing is very lightly just pressing it against the edge of the brush so we can get some sort of a pattern with the splayed bristles going in there like that. Not going all over the complete bits that we've already painted. We just put in little dips and dobs in here and there. Put in this way a little bit. Yeah. let's lighten that a bit more. Just on the edge, nice and bright. Put a bit of yellow with that. Bring a bit of blue in. Take the excess off your brush. Spray it, push it into the canvas like that. Spray it, and then coming back to the painting, and then just put a couple of highlights here and there. Pick up a bit more paint. A couple of more highlights here and there. Pick up a bit more paint. And this is what you've got to do now. You've got to make sure there's a nice brush. Think of the patterns as well. Don't just put these on willy-nilly. You've got to think of, because we know there might be light coming through here, so it's going to pick up some light on these. Don't forget, acrylic dries darker, so it's important to remember that. Using the brush on the edge now, on the side. And don't worry if this goes on a bit light in places. When we come to put the shadows in, we can darken these up. So all I want to do is now is establish some patterns. Yeah, like that.
It's time to learn with our friend Clive. So grab your brush, have a great time. And don't forget to click subscribe.